Well, once you start, just let me know. Again, it's all in your hand. You just let me know when you want to start.
Yeah, yeah. If you want to give it a little bit of time, that's awesome. We're live on YouTube right now. What's up, y'all? We are hanging out, giving the Humble.fish forum time to jump in. I'm paying attention also to the live chat over on YouTube. So I'll be trying to pay attention to a couple of different things while we're doing this, because why not make it difficult on a Sunday afternoon or Sunday morning if you're Pacific. All right. How many people did you have sign up on Humble.fish?
Around 40.
Sorry?
Usually it takes time for people to trickle in, but
Yeah. We can get going. Let's get going if you'd like.
Okay. All right.
If it's okay.
So I'll start recording.
Okay.
Recording in progress.
Awesome. Awesome. Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to yet another event. We have our
Your mic is funky. It's dropping out. Can you get closer to it?
Only online. How about everyone else? Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, if anybody else can jump on and talk, just to make sure that we're capturing audio from Zoom. Todd?
I can kind of sort of hear him. He keeps cutting in and out.
Okay, so maybe it's from my end. But that doesn't matter, because what matters is we hear Jim pretty well. So I'll cut it short. Jim, I'll hand it over to you. And today is all about you. Thank you again for doing this.
Thank you so much for having me. I also want to thank you, Omar, for pushing me, because you're good at that, and I appreciate it. Dexter for the graphics, and then Bobby for creating a super cool, where most people are comfortable, inclusive forum for this kind of activity. I dig it. I'm just gonna jump into it, if that's cool with everybody. If you've paid attention to my YouTube channel at all, some of this is going to be duplicate information. I did a similar stream, I don't know, about a month, 2 ago, something like that, that captured a lot of what we're going to talk about. I'm a 20-year, 16-day U.S. Air Force retired aircraft electro-environmental 2A676. Started out as an electrician on KC-135s, moved on to the B-2 Stealth Bomber in 1993. And then in 1999, transitioned to the YAL-1A airborne laser, which was the 747 with a big old chemical oxygen iodine laser in the back of the plane. It would do some magic and then shoot a laser beam out the nose of the plane to blow up boost-phased ballistic missiles. If you go poking around online, you'll see a video that I shared. You'll see a whole bunch of other stuff about ABL. Then they chopped that thing up around 2010, I suppose. But very cool technology. I was really lucky to be able to do what I did during my Air Force time. And that's not to suggest that I wasn't playing with electricity prior to going into the Air Force in '88. It's always been a thing where I'm taking apart, back in the day when there was boom boxes, taking apart a boom box, going to Radio Shack, and getting a amplifier to put inside of the boom box, replacing the speakers, that kind of thing, to try to make it sound better. I've always been intrigued with electricity, batteries. For whatever reason, batteries are intriguing. It just gives me something to play with. I'm old. I have 2 kids. They're 2 only children, essentially, because they were born a decade or so apart, almost 2 decades. Grandfather, and been married to the same awesome woman for the last 30 years. So one kid remembers the Air Force and one kid doesn't. So that's my background. Any questions there? If not, I'll move along. Power outages. Look, if you reef, you're going to have a power outage. And if you're here, you're probably reefing. Power outage, actually, it's a little windy outside, so I won't be shocked if we lose power during the stream, so that'd be fun, but it'd be ironic. None of this is on battery for the most part. So if you reef, I'm gonna start with 3 different categories. I'm gonna start with warnings, right? So that's my top level. And then my caution, sorry, I'm pulling from past life. And then I'm going to move on to recommendations. These are warnings. These are the things that I think you should focus on right now. And if you haven't focused on them right now, you probably should have focused on them yesterday. So don't wait for a power outage to occur. Because if you're thinking about what you're going to have to do to maintain your reef during a power outage, when a power outage occurs, it's too late. For the most part, you may be successful. You may be able to keep these things alive. But you may run into some challenges, especially now that some of us are moving into winter. It'll certainly make it a little more difficult. They're pets, right? I consider them pets. I have 2 dogs. And I don't place any more value, for the most part, on my dogs than I do the critters that are living in my tanks. I just think it's important that we consider their survivability when things get funky. I'd be like I have a copper band butterfly and a hippo tank. This hippo tank was tiny when I got it, and now the thing's big. And I've killed fish before, and I don't like it. Like I had a heater blow up once, and it cooked was it a convict? It was a convict back in freshwater days, and I was totally disappointed with myself for allowing that thing to die because of a bad heater, and that wasn't cool. Have a generator. The number one most important thing, if you have a tank with lights and pumps and water in it, have a generator. I have 2 WEN, W-E-E-N generators. They're 2,000 watt. They're probably 1,600 continuous. And they're $350 on Amazon. If you go to Harbor Freight, they're exactly the same thing as the Predator. Harbor Freight will charge you a little bit more money. Take a look at the WEN 2,000 watt generator. Like I said, I have 2. It's I have one that I keep in an RV just away from the house, just in case I need that. But I also have another one in the garage. Just think about how much your lights cost, how much everything in your tank costs, and you should be able to swing over time $350 for a generator that would be able to keep everything alive. Test your generator. If you have one, test it. Test it once a year. Test it twice a year. Test it quarterly. I would suggest quarterly. I pull my generator out, and you got to have it where you can reach it, right? But I pull that generator out, and I stick it outside on the deck or out front, and I start it up, and I go have dinner. And then I come back, and the thing's still running. That's good. That tells me I'm at least in a good spot that I think I should be able to use it when I need it. And then I'll refill the gas. If you're doing that once a year or twice a year, maybe you want to refresh your gas too. But test your generator. I was streaming once and somebody suggested that the generator I was recommending could be used in the house, or at least the question was asked, can I use the generator in the house? Don't use the generator in the house, right? This, like all of the recommendations that I'm going to provide today, know what you're doing. Don't run a generator in a house. Respect the electricity that you're going to be playing with, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, but certainly don't run a gas generator in your house. That's not cool. When you have a generator, simplify your connections within your house, the way your reef tank or whatever is wired up, so you can just take one plug, unplug it, and then plug that into an extension cord that you then run to your generator. Make it incredibly simple, because the bad thing's going to happen if you're home. The bad thing's going to happen at 2 o'clock in the morning, and it's going to be cold in your house, and you're going to be just waking up, and you won't have coffee. Just make it simple. Figure out how to set it up so you just unplug one plug and plug that into the generator. Also consider that the bad thing's going to happen when you're not home. You're going to need that generator to be operational maybe when you're traveling. So those who may come over to help you will appreciate you being prepared. Maybe even red tape a plug, hang a sign off your plug, simplify it such that whoever's coming over your house and you're talking them through it, if you have the ability to do so, go pull the plug that has the red tape on it and plug that into the generator. I think that that will help you help them, and it's something that you won't have to worry about later. I mentioned extension cords. Have those available. Have them with the generator. Have it sitting on the generator. That way you don't have to go looking for them, right? You're going to grab those things. You're going to go set up Christmas lights. You're going to go whatever. Ultimate extension cords walk away. Just make sure that whatever extension cord you're going to need for your reef is hanging out with your generator. Those... Oh, I'm getting a call. It's a spam call, too. Okay, sorry. Those are the warnings. Any questions about the warnings? All right, cool. Go ahead. I heard somebody come off mute. Maybe not. Into the cautions. Test your generator plan. Be prepared. I'll share something similar. Wait a minute. Whole home cutovers. Oh, there's chats. I'm going to have to pay attention to chats. Sorry. All right, I'm good. I'll come back to cutovers here in a minute. So, test your plan. I share an anecdote similar to what I'm talking about with testing to back in the Air Force days. Chem gear, chem training involved this hut with tear gas inside, and we would get all mopped up. We'd get our gear on, and we'd walk in this hut, and we're wearing our gas masks, and everything's cool. You may have a little tingle in the back of your throat because you know something's in there. But then they would throw a couple of tear gas balls onto the ground and get everybody stomping around to get that tear gas up in the air. And you could always tell the people that weren't prepared, that weren't able to function in a panic environment, and I attribute that to them not being prepared. But we would be told to remove our gas mask, open our eyes, and take a breath. You can't take a breath. As soon as you take a breath, your body's like, nope, you're not doing that, and your eyes clamp shut. Now, those people who didn't know how they got into that hut, they're freaking out because they're panicking because they can't breathe and they can't see. That's a little bit of an exaggeration as compared to what I'm talking about with testing your generator. But plan for it, right? Go walk through taking your generator out, plugging your extension cord, plugging it into the generator, getting everything running off your generator, firing that thing up, and making sure that it supports your tank like you think it will. Tanks change over time. We add equipment, that kind of thing. It's important for you to walk through your emergency power plan so you're prepared. So it's not muscle memory, but it's getting close where you've done it before. You know what to expect. You know the challenges. You can correct something if you identify something that you could do a little better. I call it a power drill, right? It's like a fire drill, but it's like a power drill. Also think that, and I mentioned it before, if you're not home and you got to have my adult daughter will come over, my neighbor will come over, you gotta think about FaceTime potentially not working because the internet might not be working. And in my basement, I don't have good cell service. So if my daughter comes over, I may call her. She may not be able to get a hold of me, or she's trying to FaceTime me to show me things because she's pissed off because I didn't share with her my power drill. I don't mean drill. You know what I mean, like a fire drill. Then think about that. Think about walking your friends through, walking your family through those who will help you when you're away from home. Because like I said, pretty good chance that the bad thing's going to happen when you're not home. Don't put everything on the generator. I would suggest that you put critical equipment only. So to me, critical equipment is return pump, power head, and heater if the generator can support it. I don't think you need anything else. You don't necessarily, I mean, you're going to need your controller if your controller is powering any of that stuff. But for the most part, return pump so your sump doesn't get stagnant, power heads because you want to keep that water moving. And those two together aren't going to pull a lot of juice. And then heater if you think that is something that you need, dependent upon time of year and where you live. Have spares. Power outages, EB832s, the older one with the cheesy little transformer rectifier inside. They like to fry. Have some spares. You may need to have an EB832 on hand, a spare one, just to be able to switch everything around if one gives up the magic smoke. Just think about the other spares you may need, heaters, power heads, whatever. Have those spares on hand. I think those are things that you should do anyway. They're not necessarily associated with power outages, but if the power outage fries what you need to be able to quickly swap out what broke. Also, not necessarily related to power outages, but don't wait till winter to buy your heaters. If your heater gives up at the beginning of winter, then it could be out of stock. Buy your heaters during the summer. Backup batteries. So generators are fantastic. I look at backup batteries and backup power systems as something that will take you from your normal state to your unknown state, which is a power outage, but the backup battery is now supporting your critical equipment to carry you over until it's time to put the generator online. I've been playing with batteries for a while. There's a couple of different ways you can do this, but certainly back to that critical equipment thing, make sure that your batteries are set to power heads, return pump, and we can get the heaters, but that requires some significant juice to be able to support a heater. For DC powered power heads, DC powered return pumps, some return pumps are only DC. I'm only focusing on DC right now. 24 volts. Some are 36 volts. You need to be able to support that voltage regardless of what voltage your batteries are. I use a 12-volt battery system, and I'll get to why in here in a bit. But you need to be able to use a boost converter to up that voltage of a regular 12-volt battery to be able to support your devices. Some devices will operate on just 12 volts, and that's cool, but you need to know that. I use a lot of Jabo, and my Jabo stuff is not going to run on 12 volts. My MP10s, they will, but I'm not going to have them on the tank that I'm setting up right now. The glass is too thick for the MP10, so I'll be using Jabos on the big tank. It's just something you need to think about. You won't need the AC adapter, but you will need a switchover device to get from normal power to battery power. One option is the Reef Box from Puddle Aquatics. It is a non-DIY, you're ready to go, here's a thing, plug it in, and you don't have to worry about it at all. It's just a very simple device that takes power from the wall wart, the thing that's powering your pumps, battery connection here, And then you got to make sure that if this is 24 volts, then you're going to need a battery with a boost converter plugged into here, but those are easy and cheap. And then this is the output for the device. So if this is plugged into power and battery, the battery is always on standby. The regular power is powering the device. There's other ways of doing this. This is a great option if you just want to do it, right? If you just want to buy a thing and that thing's going to be there for you, it's a great option. But you need to be able to switch from normal AC to DC wall wart to your device. You got to be able to switch from that normal power condition to battery simply. You don't want to have to fiddle with things. Lynn says she's here for the free giveaway. Shocker. Oh, I'm not paying attention to YouTube at all. Joey jumped on. What's up, Joey? Batteries aren't long-term solutions. Like I mentioned, batteries are your intermediate solution to get you from normal to generator if it's going to be a long-term event. If it's just if it's just an hour or something, and you can have yourself an 100 amp hour lithium iron phosphate, lift a lead acid battery like this, right? Then maybe you can make it through the outage. But if you're just using like a little 20 amp hour plugged into your reef box to be able to power something just for a few hours or a day, depending on what you're powering, batteries are an intermediate solution. I mentioned, and I can share links later, but I mentioned boost converters. So actually Ecotech sells one for their return pumps. So it'll take 12 volts and it will bump it up at the expense of amperage, but it'll bump it up to the voltage required for that particular pump. If you want a simple to use option for a 36 volt return pump, Ecotech's boost converter will work just fine. Otherwise, there are several options available on Amazon to get you from 12 to 24, 12 to 36 very easily. It's just 4 wires, right? 12 volt in, higher voltage out. That is it for cautions. Any questions on cautions? All right, cool. DC voltage. DC is easy. Just 12 volts easy. You're not going to kill yourself. There's very, very little chance that you're going to burn down your house. 12 volts is not going to shock you. You can't feel anything under 40 volts anyway. Don't touch the red and the black together, because that's going to let the magic smoke out. If you're using a lithium iron phosphate battery, it has a built-in battery management system, a BMS, that will kill voltage, output voltage. If it senses an overcurrent condition, touching the red and black together will certainly cause an over voltage condition. But if you have, and I say this all the time, but it really is a simple, for me, given practice, if you can change your 9 volt battery in a smoke detector, you can build yourself or assemble a very simple battery backup system for a power head or return pump. And if you're old like me and you know how to program a VCR, you're good. You'll figure it out pretty quickly. Know that your power is out, because it's going to happen when you're not home. I use a Nest Cam. I have several Nest Cams. Actually, there's one behind me over here. I use Nest Cams to know when power is out. You could set up heartbeats on your controllers, whatever, but a single Nest Cam will say, yo, I'm not connected. What's going on? It'll notify you through the app on your phone, and you'll know power is out. I usually know I've lost power from the Nest Cams before anything else. Actually, the Hydros is really good about that too. Hydros power out alarm is good, but I have my Hydros hooked up to a UPS, which we'll get to here in a minute. But have a way of knowing that you have lost power in your house. That way you can react, especially if you're out at the beach, you're not home, you're halfway across the world. You need to be able to call for help when that time comes. Batteries, lead acid batteries. So those of you with lead acid, I mean, how often do you capacity check your lead acid batteries? Because there's a pretty good chance when you need that battery, if it's older than 3 years, it's not going to be there for you. It's going to be greatly reduced capacity, potentially even no more capacity, depending upon how you've used it. You need to test your batteries. I would test my batteries, if they were lead acid, once a year. I want to know how long the equipment will last. So you can base that on prior testing. I would also suggest that you not discharge a lead acid lower than 50%. Below 50%, even with deep cycle batteries, you're starting to cause damage to the cells. That way, when you charge your lead acid battery back up following a discharge, the capacity has been reduced. It's not like it was before. So that's just something you need to consider. How do you test a lead acid? Sorry, I'm going to scooch this over. Rob asked that while watching football, I'm sure. I would just run a pump on the battery. If you have something that you've created or you're using that makes it very simple for you to unplug the wall wart power, so then your pump is running on battery, just pay attention to see how long that thing runs. There's also capacity checkers that you can get, little shunt devices available from Amazon that make it very easy for it to totalize how much energy the battery has given up during a test. I used old lights. You could use anything. If you're going to check a heater, the ability of that thing to carry the load of a heater, then you're going to want to use like a hair dryer or a hot air gun, that kind of thing. But you could put any load you want on there. Don't put a toaster, right? Or a coffee maker. Those are heavy loads. Plug in your lamp. Plug in the light that's next to you into a shunt capacity thing. I can leave a link when we're done, but just have a way of doing it. Most simple way is to just unplug the power source from whatever DC switchover device you were using. But again, if you're using lead acid, don't discharge it below 50% because you're going to damage it. Aggregation of power. This may be getting a little more popular, and I'm not sure really how I feel. Well, I know how I feel about it. And I don't necessarily think it's a good idea. If you're going to, there's an interest in eliminating some of the power bricks that we have that support our DC gear, and by removing them all and aggregating them to one large DC power supply, I wouldn't do that with critical equipment. I think that's one of the things that the CoralView Kraken, Hydros Kraken is offering to the community. I wouldn't do that. I think it increases your risk, especially attached to critical devices. Now you're relying on the functionality of one single device to keep all your stuff running. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to keep my critical equipment attached to their own power supplies, so that if I lose a power supply or a device, that I don't take out all the others. It's just something to think about. Everything breaks. And you can have equipment with a mean time between failure and MTBF of 50,000 hours, but you got the lemon, and the thing's going to last 5. You won't know it until you need it. Don't aggregate power for critical devices. Just my recommendation. It's not something that I'm going to do. So you can go bigger. What I did is I have an MPP solar, watts247.com. This dude in Utah, no affiliation, but he sold me an MPP solar automatic transfer switch solar charge controller that I installed in one of my closets in the basement. And what that does is, then I installed 400 watts of solar up on my roof. I ran that down to the solar charge controller. And then I have multiple lithium iron phosphate batteries attached to that device. It's essentially a very large UPS. So you go to Staples and you buy an APC UPS. It's kind of like that, only bigger. What that allows me to do is continuously add batteries. So if I started out with a small battery on the MPP, and then as time and money allows, I've been adding bigger batteries because you can add them in parallel and add capacity. So what the MPP lets me do is, it is my big UPS. It is connected to AC power from my house. It's also connected to batteries. And there's a pure sine wave inverter inside of that device. And then it's also connected to solar. So critical systems on one of my tanks will run off of battery all day long, year round, with solar recharging the batteries. If the batteries get too low, then it switches back over to grid power and charges those batteries back up. And as soon as the batteries are topped off, it'll switch back over to solar. During the summer, I can go all day, to include a 200 watt, 300 watt, 300 watt heater. It can go all day on just solar and batteries. And then when the MPP solar charge controller says, yo, I don't have any more solar, it'll switch that off, switch everything back over to AC, and then it functions just like your APC UPS. You can do that for about $1,200, $1,400 for a 12-volt system. Excuse me, including solar. It's really easy. So if you have a portion of your roof, a shed, whatever, that is south-facing, panels are under $100 each. You'll need 4 of those. You need a solar charge controller. That's another $300, something like that. Then you just start adding batteries, and you can go quite a while on just big batteries. There's this guy. I'm a visual learner. I'm a video learner. I'm not a good reader. I can read, but I don't like it. There's this guy, Will Prowse, Prowse, on YouTube. I started binge watching his stuff when he was way back living in an RV, and I've continued to follow Will for a while now. He has a forum, so check that out. He is a wealth of knowledge. He presents the information very simply, very directly, very matter-of-factly, and he's good to watch. When you're thinking about battery backup systems, you're going to have to consider what voltage you want to support your equipment. I choose 12 volts for a couple of reasons. 12-volt batteries are easy to find. I can grab one of the 12 volts that I have in my house and use them. I can go to Walmart and buy a 12-volt deep cycle trolling motor battery or something. Like if I'm desperate and I need a 12-volt battery, I can find those. Car parts stores, Home Depot, Walmart, whatever. I think being able to get your batteries quickly is easier than buying 2 batteries and hooking them up in series and giving you 24 volts, that kind of thing. But then I can also use my car. I can use any of the cars that I have, to include warranty voiding, but I could plug in all of my stuff to the Tesla 12-volt battery, and the big battery is going to charge the 12-volt, and then I have access to the big battery too. So I like 12 volts because it just makes my life easier. It's not the most efficient. You need to have thicker wires to support 12-volt devices because the amperage is higher. The higher the voltage, the lower the amperage when you're dealing with this kind of thing. But it's not a significant thing. It's easy. 12 volts just makes it easier for me. I'll get through chat here in a minute. I mentioned lithium iron phosphate batteries versus lead acid batteries. Lead acid, great for starting cars, but I don't like them for backup power because they're really only good for 3 years. So if you do like a total, I don't know, if you look at the survivability of lithium iron phosphate versus lead acid, lithium iron phosphate is absolutely less expensive. If you take the 10-year approach versus a 3-year approach for lead acid, the chemistry of a lithium iron phosphate is non-flammable, so it's not going to burn down your house. It's the magic smoke's going to be let out of that battery if something goes wrong, but it's not going to catch on fire. Same as the lead acid. It's just I prefer the newer technology over the old whatever lead acid stuff. The batteries that the hobby has given us, there's two main, right? It's the Ice Cap and the Ecotech. The Ecotech is a 18 amp hour lead acid battery inside of that metal box, and it weighs a freaking ton. You're not gonna easily lift up. And actually, this 20 amp hour Miati lithium iron phosphate fits inside of that box. It's just a big, heavy, stupid box with a $35 18 amp hour lead acid battery inside. They're charging $200 for the thing, but it's a $35 battery inside with a super cheap charger and some wires. You can easily make that yourself. The other is the Ice Cap, which on their advertising shows 2.5 amp hours, but the battery inside is 4, so that's weird. And that thing, the cost per amp hour / watt hour is so insanely high. I don't get it. The manufacturers are not giving hobbyists good options for battery backup. I think the Kraken is a step in the right direction, but the Kraken on battery only supports 12 volt devices. It doesn't convert the voltage, so you'll have to get your own boost converters anyway. So, and if you got to do that, just make your own, or an alternative like the Reef Box. I mentioned it already, but when you build your own battery backup system, you can continue to add batteries. So as long as they're similar amp hours, like this one here is a 20, this one here is 100. I would have to put, math is simple, right? 5 of these together in parallel, and then put that parallel group in parallel with this 100. But you can sort of get them close to where batteries you've purchased in the past aren't wasted if you can build parallel groups that then equal the output of like this big old 100 amp hour battery that's right here. This thing was cheap. This is $300 on Amazon for a 100 amp hour battery. It doesn't have cold temp charge sensing, and I don't care about that because it's going to be in my house, right? I wouldn't use this in an RV, but I'll certainly use it inside of a house. Moving on to heaters. So heaters suck. Heaters suck to run off of batteries because they're just they're like 200 watt, 300 watt, 500 watt. I mean, that's pulling a whole lot. So if you want to run a heater nonstop, and it's a 500 watt heater, you're going to have a 500 watt hour battery to support 1 hour of heater use. And then there's math you can figure out to go from like 100 amp hours to watt hours. That's just 12 times 100. So there's your, right? That gives you could do the math to figure out how long your heater's going to run while connected to your battery. But to do that, you're going to need an inverter, a pure sine wave inverter. I would use only pure sine wave, only because it's going to be more efficient. You'll get longer battery power with a pure sine wave instead of your device having to chug along with a modified sine wave, which is kind of square and stupid looking. If you are going to run a heater off of a battery with an inverter, plan on your heater running, just plan double the size of the battery that you think you're going to need to support your heater runtime. It's difficult to calculate that because it's dependent upon season and whatever, house temperature and all these things. Heaters are it's hard. That's why you need a generator, because heaters are then suddenly simplified. Solar generators, that's another one. So those things are really, really expensive, but they're simple because you just buy it and it's like a little cooler that you drag along, but it's your battery. Some of those have lithium iron phosphate, some of them have straight lithium. I would focus on the lithium iron phosphates because You can recharge that over and over and over, and they will last longer than straight lithiums. But the lithium iron phosphate models are going to be larger because their energy density is less. So it takes more lithium iron phosphate size to give you the same power as a lithium. Good options for quick and easy use, but they're so expensive. It's going to take a while for those things to come down in price. Last thing I have, besides UL listing, which is like meh. So think about that, right? Everything I'm talking about is probably not UL listed. I don't know what that's going to mean for you. It's not a thing for me because I don't mind playing with this kind of stuff. That's my responsibility, not anybody else's. So just keep that in mind. Last thing I want to talk about is UPSs. Great options for simplicity. You can go to the store, Staples, Best Buy, whatever, and buy the UPS. Buy a UPS that may support your devices. Pretty good chance it's not going to support your heater unless it's a hoss of a UPS, but it'll certainly support your power heads and return pump because it makes it really easy, right? You just plug the AC into the UPS and you don't have to do anything. That makes it really easy. However, UPSs are they're inefficient at light loads. And you may get a UPS that's rated for higher power than a cheaper one, but they're both using the exact same size batteries. BRS a couple years ago did a comparison between, they're just trying to sell the Ecotech battery, but they were doing a comparison between the Ecotech battery and two different size UPSs. But what they failed to recognize is both of those UPSs that they bought had the exact same size battery in it. So it's not like they were going to do anything better. And then at the loads that they were putting on those UPSs, the UPSs were super inefficient. Good options for simple, easy backup power. And they're better than nothing. But you could do better on your own with just batteries. Also, make sure you get a pure sine wave version. Most of them are, most of the consumer ones are modified sine wave. Not necessarily good for your controllers, that kind of equipment. Like I was playing with one and I had a house heater plugged into it, just one of those little upright heaters, and it smoked the electronics inside that heater, the sensing circuits inside that heater, which was super weird. It shouldn't have done that, but it did. That's it. That's all I have. Have backup power. I don't know, right? At some point, you shouldn't care what you have as long as you have a generator. That's what I would focus on. But have some sort of backup power and plan, and then decide to complicate it from there. Okay, questions? I can scan through chat very quickly if there's anything. Checking on you, Omar. You can hear me? All right, I think I got him. One new message. All right, cool. All right, y'all. I'll hang out for a little bit. If you want to talk, happy to talk. And then I'm also going to catch up on the YouTube side to see what we got going on over there. Question 1. What should we care about when it comes to battery details when selecting one? Voltage, current rating, amp hour. Batteries are rated as amp hour. And then you'll want to think then about watt hour later, but the bigger is better. The bigger the amp hour battery, the better. You don't always see amp hour ratings on lead acid batteries. You can find them, but it's not something that's pre-printed on them. For whatever reason, lithium iron phosphate manufacturers like to print it right on there. Like, that's 20 amp hours. This is an Amazon battery. You hear noise here. So bigger is better in the case of battery amp hours. I'm really only focusing on 12 volt. You can get 24 volt batteries, but they're more expensive, and usually you can't buy them locally generally. any practical maintenance regimes to prolong battery life in general. The days of having to actually, if you're going to fully and I talked about this, but if you're going to fully discharge a lead acid battery, you're going to damage it. Deep cycle or not, it's going to negatively impact its ability to hold a charge next charge cycle. So try not to fully discharge your lead acid batteries. Like if your car dies because you left a dome light on, you have damaged your battery. That's just the way it works. It's not going to happen with a lithium iron phosphate battery because they have a low voltage cutoff. So at the voltage where the cells will start to be damaged because of low voltage, the lithium iron phosphate batteries with built-in management system just turn off so you don't damage them. So they charge back up easily, or back up to full charge, or as close to full charge as possible. So I wouldn't do anything maintenance-wise other than checking capacity. I do it with the lead acid or with the lithium iron phosphates too, because I just want to know if the way I'm charging them is negatively impacting them. Like I took a DIY pack and put it inside my Ecotech case. My Ecotech, I bought a used Ecotech battery just to take it apart and see what was inside. And the lead acid was junk. It couldn't hold a load anymore. But I put in my own batteries, lithium iron phosphates, but they were individual cells with a battery management system, and I'm charging that with the Ecotech charger. So then I'll occasionally load test that pack just to see if that charger is negatively impacting those cells, and so far, no. When you get a generator, does it have to be an inverter generator? Yeah, I would be surprised if they aren't all inverter generators, those that you're buying for consumer use. Just take a look at those those 2,000 watt jobbers. I'll leave a link. But you go to Harbor Freight and you'll see the exact same things. They have inverters inside. A specific recommendation for the generator. Again, no affiliation at all, but those little WEN generators are fantastic. You could also get propane kits for them, not made by the manufacturer. Honda generators are really good, and some of them will come dual fuel, so you could hook up a propane tank and run it even longer. That's something to consider. But those cheap WENs at $350, you can find them cheaper. Just use Camel or something like that. That keeps an eye on Amazon prices and will email you when the price that you've requested is hit. And that's camel.com. That's the dumbest damn name ever, but it works. What's a good way to distinguish between power out versus internet out? I don't have a good way of doing that. I assume anytime I've lost connection to my cameras that power is out. That's when I, call for help. Or I'll call my neighbor because he might be home. Yo, you watching TV? Yes. Then it's my internet. That's the easiest way.
I have a question, if I could.
Of course.
I was going to type it. I couldn't figure out how to type it out, so I'll just try and talk through it.
Yeah, no problem.
So where it gets complicated for me is like right now I have my Apex plugged into a simple APC UPS.
Yep.
I think it's 1500, and I have the auxiliary power connection that lets the Apex know if house power is out.
Yeah.
So then I can trigger things to happen, like everything except the power head shuts down, then the power head ramps down to 35% or whatever I want it to do, right? And all that's great. But if I want to replace that APC with a LiFePO, that's 12 volt only, right?
Yeah, they're
so
both
I can't
12 volt.
provide that 120 to the whole controller.
So you could take the lead acid out of your APC because it's a 12 volt battery inside.
Yeah.
Unless you have a big one that's a larger voltage.
No, it's a 1500. Just
Okay.
typical. Yeah.
So a 1500 volt amp APC, right? So probably has a 12 volt battery inside. You can take that battery out, hook a connector up to the wires that are in, and you're not going to kill anybody, right? You're not going to hurt yourself.
Yeah.
But hook a connector up like this to the wires that are on the inside. Get the mated connector, which ships from Amazon. It ships with a socket, and then get yourself a big battery. The APC is not going to care what battery it has inside or outside. So if you have an external connection, and you can connect any battery you want with gator clips like this, like that's what this is for. That red battery back there I made gives me the ability to connect this to any battery I want to support the voltage to my devices. So, and if your APC is older than 3 years, that battery is probably junk anyway.
Correct.
So take an old one that you have or somebody gives you, whatever, take it apart and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. It's just 2 wires and then hook them up to whatever size battery you want. You could get this 20 amp hour for probably $70, and it's absolutely going to be bigger than the battery you have inside your APC.
Right. And it's just a matter of making it look pretty in the room. Yeah.
Or run the wires long enough to put it outside where it doesn't need to be.
There you go.
Not outside.
All right,
but
thanks.
That
helps.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Oh, and then the other thing was the whole house cutover for a generator.
Yeah.
That's got to be a good way to go, but then you got to go and flip switches on your panel to turn things off. You don't want to power from the generator. Yeah.
That's a different kind of thing. And that's something that I'll caution against, only because now you're creeping up on grid tie. So if you don't do your switches right, it's possible that you're going to feed your generator out to the grid.
Electrician is in order in that case. Yeah.
Yeah, that's bad, because then you could whack somebody who's working up on a pole because they're not expecting power to come at you or come at them. So it can absolutely be done. I would encourage the use of an electrician. It's not something I'm going to do to my house. I just keep it off of my circuits. I use the AC power to support what I'm doing, but I'm not going to tie in at the panel.
Gotcha.
Rob's been working on it. So yeah, this is 100 amp hour. Right. Rob saved it in chat there, but he's working on a 280 amp hour. There's a couple people floating around that have huge batteries systems to support their reef in case of a problem. And actually one of them was in Florida. It's on my Discord. One was in Florida, ran into the problem. And Rob says he's compensating. That's funny. And the tank did stay alive for the entire time. Other things got fried because they got water in it, but the batteries did keep the reef going for several days. YouTube, maybe in the weeds, but have you noticed a drop in total capacity using non-matching batteries in parallel? You will lose. If I take 15 amp hour batteries and I put 4 of these in parallel, and then I take that parallel group and I put in parallel 100 amp hour battery, then my total capacity will be the capacity of this thing being 60 amp hours and not 100 amp hours. But try to match your batteries. If you match your batteries in parallel, then the capacity will be doubled, and it won't be that of the lower, right? Because then it would be 120 and not 200. If that was too fast, hit me up and I can explain that later. Wouldn't it be simple to buy a bunch of relays, a sine wave inverter, lithium battery, and boom, custom to any power needs? Yes, it's not simple, but yes, it's absolutely doable. The problem with relays is you're going to have to keep them hot. So you're going to have to keep them powered during normal operation, and then they're going to have to, when they lose power, then they're normally closed state is going to have to be what you're running your power through to get your devices. So just consider that your relays are always going to be active and generating heat and potentially frying. Then you won't have that ability. But yeah, you can totally do it. That's something that can be made. Rob's going to go 24 volts, which is more efficient. Absolutely. Propane only generator is a good option too. Yeah, totally. any kind of generator is a good option as far as I'm concerned. I think that gives you what you need. Okay, I think I'm good here. If there are no other questions, that was about an hour. And thank you to Omar, and thank you to Humble.fish for giving me the opportunity to share battery power, backup power, something that I think is incredibly important. If you can buy a light, buy a generator. It's like dodging a wrench and dodging a ball. You know what I'm saying? Omar says his stupid mic isn't working, so I'll wrap it up. Thank you all for coming to the emergency power talk with Telegram. He's a bit of a fool, but sometimes what he provides, the information he provides, somebody might be able to use. Not everybody, probably like one person. So thanks for hanging out. All right, y'all. I'll hang out for a little bit if you'd like to talk.
We're just hanging out now. Is that a Refi Uno 2 behind you? It's a little blurry.
This?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You liking it so far? Or?
Yeah, it's awesome. We can talk lights. We can talk this if you want to talk this. Rob, your mic was kind of funky too. Hey, how long do we have this Zoom for? If we have it for a while, I can talk about this. I don't want to get punted. Your mic is jacked, Rob. So the Uno 2. So I tested the Uno 1 and the Duo Extreme, and I loved both of those lights. My only challenge with the Uno 1 was it was really violet spectrum. It was really, really blue. Rob has several of them on his tank, and it's working. If you don't like really blue, then maybe the Uno original wasn't going to work for you, but that little sucker was so powerful. So then Daniel comes up with the Uno 2, which is even more powerful. I saw this thing pulling 280 watts. It's a small light, right? I saw this pulling 280 watts on my kilowatt down here. As far as I'm concerned, this is the first light that can be the only light you buy no matter how big your tank is. So if you're starting with like a 15 tall, 10 gallon, whatever, this is a great size light for that. You just dim it. It's $450. And then if you upgrade, which all of us seem to do at some point, you still have the light you need. And then if you upgrade again, you still have the light you need. You may need more of these things, but I see this light as an AI Prime, an XR15, and an XR30 in one light. The spectrum's good. It's like an XR30, XR15 blue. So very similar to that kind of a spectrum. It's a bluer spectrum. But this does have more whites in it than the original Uno. Super impressed. I took it apart. It ships with... I can't pull it. It's in a box. But it ships with 2 different reflectors, one narrower, one a little wider. You could also take off the reflector, take off the white thing. It ships with the silver thing inside. You could take off either one of these and run it without the reflectors, REEF flectors. But you could also buy, I think it's a 60 degree from Daniel from the website. I don't know if they're available yet. So you could tune this based on what you need and mounting height, that kind of thing. Really, really impressed with this light. Like I should have bought.
I'm seeing that right. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
If I'm seeing that right, are those nuts through the glass front panel this time instead of being glued down to the glass?
Yep, that's what it appears to be.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's a little nicer.
Sometimes taking it apart, if you over torqued it on the 1.0, you pop that UV and you'd have to reglue it.
Yep.
Or the UV cure resin that they use to fix it to the glass. So that's a nice nifty little functional improvement to them.
Yeah, I'm happy with that light. I like that little sucker. So I'm gonna do what I do. I have this light to test. I've got an XR15 downstairs, a Gen 6. I have a couple of other lights to test, but I'll put up the data on Humble.fish. I already did a little preview of it where I'm like, this thing's stupid. I can't believe it's so powerful for its price. I like what Daniel's doing, especially at that price point. $50 less than an XR15, and it's double. It's 2.7 times more powerful. Oh, I missed some chat. Rob's been typing because his mic sucks. Oh, enterprise account. Okay, cool. Oh, yeah. Yeah, Daniel, he already updated firmware on this thing. I think it was Luca. Mahina corals, so Quanta reef bars. He bought one and hit up Daniel with a fan thing, and Daniel's like, yeah, we can do that. So, poof. Firmware upgrade. It happens so fast. So I like that Daniel listens to owners. Anything else? Oh, there's more chat. Sorry. For the refi. Change the reflectors seems to be a great way to multiple. Yep. I'm using a big light on a small tank, and the 60-degree reflector is too much spread until yeah, see? I like it. And I've heard others mention that the Gen 6s should have different spread lenses, radions, to give you some right, because they went spready. I like the Gen 4s. I think Gen 4 is the best radion made, but then they went pretty spready with the newer ones. It'd be nice to be able to focus it based on use, so to be able to buy other lenses to support your needs. Max, you gonna say something?
Yeah, I'm trying to do my camera because I'm like doing a crazy thing right now. I'm building up a full.
Lost you. You back on mute.
I'm trying to build like a whole canopy around my tank right now to deal with too much spread from the light, but I'm trying to figure out how to get it with a selfie camera.
Yep.
But I'm like 3D printing a full shield around it right now because it's just been too much spread. I have an AP 9X on here.
Yeah.
On a little 30-gallon.
Can you lower it, or is that's as low as it'll go?
Oh, it's also doing like thing where it's trying to find my face because it's an iPad.
No.
I have it like 12 inches off the water right now.
Yep.
Let's see.
So, cheers to you for having a big ass light over a little tank. I like that because there's no such thing as overkill as far as I'm concerned. If light's dim, put a big old light over your little tank. That's cool.
Yeah, it's at like 45%, but I figured if I'm going to go to like a 75 in the future, I'll be able to keep the same light and not need to upgrade again.
I dig it. Andrew's throwing in, not sure if this has been mentioned, but something to deal with. I realized that my receptacles GFCI was not grounded. So if you use a surge in between your GFCI, overcurrent, going back to the ground, if you have any devices that expose ground to the tank, you're going to shock yourself. You know what? Awesome point. And everyone who has a tank should have a generator, but they should also have a grounding plug. So those things are super cheap on Amazon. It plugs into the ground. You can get a ground checker to see if your ground is actually ground, but everybody should have a grounding plug, right? A grounding probe in their tank to pull any voltage out of a tank. Because, it can make you lay down, and that's not cool. I've been shocked a lot, and I was like just shocked a couple days ago. It's just whatever. It's something I do to know I'm alive. Don't do that, because it may just give you the tinglies, or it may make you go to sleep for a minute. But everybody should have a... Thanks, Andrew. Thanks for mentioning that. Everyone should have a grounding probe in their tank. Sleep for a minute does sound so bad. Sometimes you just take a little bit of nap. Electricity nap is I don't know which I would prefer, an electricity nap or a nitrogen nap. Why this thing's changed? All right. Anybody else? All right, then I'm going to jump. All right, y'all. Wait, let me look real quick. I missed something. All right, cool. Thanks, y'all. I really appreciate you hanging out. Thank you for being a part of this. Happy reefing and be kind, everybody. Thanks. Thanks, Omar. I'm out.
Recording stopped.
Which do I leave first? All right. Have a good day.